Well, there are some ideas that are bad ideas, and there's some ideas that are stupid ideas. Very rarely can you combine both, but that's what you've got here. A really bad and stupid idea because you're just fueling inflation. Now, the great news about what's going on between state to state is we're finally getting a competition. Idiot management states are losing taxpayers, losing capital from companies, and lots of movement out of them. California, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, people are leaving there and companies are leaving there and moving to places like Colorado, North Dakota, Florida, Montana. I am doing my fair part of that too. I'm moving companies out of California. That place is great to visit, but not fit for business. I would never invest a dime there. Same with New York. I've moved a big project out of New York to Norway, a data center there because New York policy is unstable. And I spend a fair amount of my time on the Hill showing these examples to lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. I'm just one investor, but we make aggregate decisions, millions of them by the day, and those places are uncompetitive.
Hello and welcome to Money Talks. In today's video, Shark Tank star and popular investor Kevin O'Leary, aka Mr. Wonderful, updates about his thoughts on cryptocurrencies including Bitcoin and why it will be the 12th sector of the S&P 500. Along with take on crypto adoption in the future growth aspects, Kevin also shares his views on inflation, recession, and rising interest rates. Make sure to stick around till the end of this video where Kevin O'Leary predicts that a massive change is coming to crypto space.
Yeah, I would say I'm very excited about going into the new year around crypto, and I'll tell you why. And I have to be transparent. I'm an investor in Circle, which does USDC. I have many positions on, but they're one of them. And also an investor in FTX, both the US and the international company, and a paid spokesperson for FTX. So with those disclosures aside, you're going to see something remarkable at Davos this year, which happens in mid-January. Each year, that global gathering has a new theme. A few years ago, it was global warming, and then it became deglobalization, then globalization. This year, you're going to see crypto at the top of the list of what is being discussed by global bankers, specifically around payment systems, where we talk about a ACH transfer between banks or SWIFT transfer internationally. These were private sector innovations decades ago that were heavily regulated by global governments. And for the first time now, products like stablecoins could really disrupt that at a significantly faster, more productive, more transparent, more auditable, but above all, far less expensive system for transferring global assets. And so you're going to see companies like Circle headline at that event. And I think it's going to be, Davos will be you're going to see a lot of crypto-based conversation at a global level with global governments as they struggle to find some kind of policy and regulation. And that bill, the Stablecoin Transparency Act, is at the forefront of that. That is a bipartisan US bill that I think could be marked up by the time we get to that place, because it'll be after the midterms on November 8th, which is going to be significant for crypto policy. I think what will happen in the House will help crypto policy. But I think all of this is going to be really fascinating and why everybody should stay on their toes. Lots of change coming.
Bitcoin's lack of volatility lately isn't a bad thing and could actually point to signs of a bottoming out in prices, analysts and investors told CNBC. Digital currencies have fallen sharply since a scorching run in 2021, which saw Bitcoin climb as high as $68,990. But for the past few months, Bitcoin's price has bounced stubbornly around $20,000 in a sign that volatility in the market has settled.
Well, you have to remember the most hated man on earth is always the chair of the Fed, regardless of who they are, man or woman. Everybody hates the Fed. Everybody second guesses the Fed. Everybody says they're doing the wrong thing all of the time. You can't make anybody happy when you're the Fed chair. And that's exactly what's happening here. He's trying to, in this case, in Powell's case, engineer a soft landing, which is near impossible. No one's ever seen that happen. However, data coming out this morning proves that we are not yet in a recession. Everybody kind of knows that just by the feeling of the consumer being so strong. And so for the first time in a long time, people are thinking, wow, maybe he can pull this off. And we would know sometime of Q2 next year that he could actually bring in a soft landing, slow down inflation. After all he needs, and the Fed in aggregate needs, the board itself needs, is some indication that the rate of increase of inflation is slowing. That's the key right now. And so we don't have that quite yet. There's a narrative in the market, and I want people to understand this and how CPI data is gathered. So much, 40% of CPI data is housing, shelter. And shelter is a very slow index. And so it takes up to 18 months to actually have an effect on it. But people in different markets are starting to see rent rates slow or flatten or housing prices flatten. So really what we're probably doing in the CPI number right now is over-reporting inflation. And that narrative has been coming in with Professor Siegel, who's been talking about this ad nauseum for the last 6 weeks. But he has a point. You can't deny the fact that 40% of CPI is shelter. And maybe we're over-calculating it. Now, people do this all the time, and I'm guilty of it right now, trying to say, well, here's why we shouldn't believe this number. It's just more Fed beating and more Fed hating and more, telling the Fed what to do. And the truth is, they don't give a damn. They don't listen. They have their own mandate. They're going to do what they're going to do. And I say that'll be 75 basis points coming to a theater near you in the next few days.
Stocks and cryptocurrencies are both down sharply this year as interest rate hikes by the U.S. Federal Reserve and a strengthening dollar weighed on the sector. Bitcoin's correlation with stocks has increased over time as more institutional investors have invested in crypto. But Bitcoin's price has stabilized recently, and for some investors, that easing of volatility is a good sign.
Well, I've come to the conclusion, because I have my own index to look at, which is my 50 plus private companies, that 50% of this inflation is actually because of supply chain that still hasn't been fixed. Deglobalization, I'll give you just a case study. I've used it so many times. Let's say I'm making gym equipment in Fargo, North Dakota, where I am. And prior to the pandemic, we used to buy all of our metal, our barbells, our screws, some of the infrastructure for the benches from Asia, from China, from Vietnam, from other countries where it was 30% cheaper. We can't get those supplies anymore, partly because the ship that has it on it is stuck at LA Port. Yes, it's still a problem. LA Port has not been fixed yet. And so we are forced to go buy that steel made here domestically. Now, whether that's a good thing or bad thing, we can debate that till the cows come home. However, it's 33% more expensive. So we take those barbells and those benches, mark them up 33%, sell them into an ever-increasing demand market. Our sales have not slowed, but it's 30% more expensive. That, my friends, is inflation. And it's not going to change until I can buy those barbells again in Asia at 30% less, which is no time soon. So the fact is that inflation is self-inflicted by the fact that we're starting to slow down in cooperation with global suppliers. We're fighting with the Chinese, we're cutting off their chips, they're reciprocating. All of that stuff is occurring. And on top of that, people are concerned about domestic supplies of things like semis and oil and gas, because it's the only thing you can count on. You don't want to be begging hand in cap with foreign dictators like Venezuela, or going to see the Saudis and asking them to increase production when they're just not listening. And so at the end of the day, we have this transition occurring, and that's part of the inflation number. The economy itself, though, proven again by numbers today, is doing very, very well. That's because, again, I'm speculating, $6.7 trillion worth of cash was printed in the last 30 months, still sitting in the checking accounts of the consumer, and he and she are spending it.
Cryptocurrencies have suffered from a brutal comedown this year, losing $2 trillion in value since the height of the 2021 rally. Bitcoin, the world's biggest digital coin, is off around 70% from its November peak. The current so-called crypto winter is largely the result of aggressive tightening from the Fed, which has been hiking interest rates in an effort to tame rocketing inflation. So, do you agree with Kevin O'Leary's take on inflation, depression, and market crashes? Tell us in the comments. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon with the next video. Thank you so much for watching.